Have you ever wondered if a secret can really stay buried forever? Well, today we are diving deep into a story where a 20-year-old lie comes roaring back to life. It's a story about a divine confrontation and a conscience that's been asleep for 2 decades, finally waking up. This look at Genesis 42 is brought to you by the UNFIJ and Jesus team.
I mean, that's really the question at the heart of Genesis chapter 42, isn't it? There's this massive famine going on, but believe me, the lack of food is the least of this family's problems. This crisis is about to unearth a sin they have desperately tried to forget. All right, let's jump right in. We start in Canaan, and yeah, the land is barren from the famine, but that is nothing compared to the spiritual wasteland in the hearts of Jacob's sons. They are totally paralyzed, just stuck. Their father, Jacob, just lays it out there with this really sharp question. Why do ye look one upon another? He sees them just staring at each other, totally frozen. You see, for 20 years, the unconfessed guilt of what they did to Joseph has left them completely unable to act. They're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. So Jacob has to literally push them out the door. He tells them, "Get you down thither and buy for us, that we may live and not die." He sends 10 of them off to Egypt. And with that single command, he has no idea he's just set in motion the fulfillment of a prophecy made to his grandfather Abraham generations before. But notice, Jacob keeps his youngest son, Benjamin, at home. Why? Lest peradventure mischief befall him. That one word, mischief, tells you everything. The wound of losing Joseph is still so raw. And it shows that Jacob's favoritism, the very thing that started this whole mess, is still alive and well. Okay, so now the scene shifts to Egypt, and this is where the tension really starts to crank up. The brothers show up, desperate for food, and they come face to face with the second most powerful man in the entire country, the guy who controls all the grain. And right here, wow, we see the stunning, literal fulfillment of Joseph's dream from way back in Genesis 37. The very same brothers who sold him into slavery are now bowing with their faces on the ground before him. The irony is just off the charts. They are completely at his mercy, and they don't have a clue who he is. Just look at the massive gap in what's happening here. On one side, you've got Joseph. He sees his long-lost brothers. He sees his dreams from God coming true. He sees a chance to fix what's broken. But on the other side, his brothers are spiritually blind. All they see is an angry Egyptian ruler and a terrifying life-or-death accusation. Now, Joseph speaks really harshly to them. He accuses them of being spies. But this isn't about revenge. No, this is a very calculated test. He's applying immense pressure, squeezing them to see if the truth will finally come out after 20 years of lies. And you know what? It works. To defend themselves, they start talking about their family. They mention their youngest brother Benjamin is at home, and then they say one is not. That's the lie they've been telling themselves and everyone else for 2 decades. They still can't say Joseph's name. So Joseph's test gets very specific. They have to go home and bring Benjamin back. And to make sure they do it, he throws them all in prison for 3 days. It's in that darkness, in that silence, that the cracks finally start to appear in their hardened hearts. Their conscience is starting to wake up. The fear, the isolation, it all comes together. After 20 years of burying that awful secret, it's just too much to carry. And they finally start talking, not to Joseph, but to each other. They finally start speaking the truth. This right here, this is the turning point. For the first time, they connect the dots. We are verily guilty. Therefore is this distress come upon us. They finally get it. Their suffering today is a direct result of their sin from yesterday. They remember Joseph begging for his life, and they just wouldn't listen. And Joseph, who of course understands every word they're saying, has to literally turn away from them so they don't see him weep. His heart is breaking for them. But he knows that true repentance has to be more than just words. So he has Simeon bound right in front of them, both as a consequence and as a guarantee they will come back. So Joseph sends them home with all the grain they need. But then he does something else, something in secret. It's an act of radical grace that their guilty minds are completely unprepared to handle. In fact, it's going to feel a lot more like judgment than mercy. He tells his servants to fill their sacks with grain and to secretly put every man's money right back in with it. The You Need Faith in Jesus team points out what a beautiful picture of salvation this is. We come to God totally empty, and He sends us away full, with our debt paid by Him.
But here's the thing about a guilty conscience. It can't receive grace properly. When one of the brothers finds the money, what should be a moment of relief becomes a moment of pure terror. Their hearts fail them. They don't see mercy, they see a trap. They correctly realize God is behind this, but they totally misread His intentions.
And when they finally get home and tell Jacob the whole story, he just cries out in total despair. From where he's standing, it looks like his whole world is collapsing. He only sees loss, completely blind to the fact that God is actually putting his family back together.
So, why should this ancient story matter to you and me today? Well, as the You Need Faith in Jesus team shows us, sometimes our biggest hardships, just like this famine, are really divine appointments in disguise.
You know, this story actually gives us a roadmap for our own Genesis 42 moments. First, try to see God's hand in your hardship. Second, be willing to confront and confess your sin, to be honest about your past. And third, be ready to surrender your Benjamin, that one thing you're clinging to for security.
Jacob's point of view was completely clouded by his pain and his fear. All he could see was tragedy and loss. He just couldn't see the big picture, the hand of a loving God working behind the scenes to save everyone he loved. This is the promise that Jacob couldn't see in his grief, but it was true for him, and it is absolutely true for us today. The governor of the entire universe is working all things together for the good of those who love him. And that wraps up our look at Genesis 42, brought to you by the You Need Faith in Jesus team. This story is just such a powerful challenge for us to trust God's plan, especially when it feels like everything is falling apart. So it leaves us with this question. What's the Benjamin in your life that you're holding on to so tightly? What is God asking you to release so that He can bring a restoration that you can't even begin to imagine?